And we see all sorts of behaviors in groups that we don't see as an individual. So these are all very interesting things to look at. So there's some perspectives that we can. So these charts are very kind of important to understand. So we have neuroscience, um, how the body and brain contributes to behavior. Evolutionary psychologists ask a very interesting question that their belief that certain behaviors and traits in human beings develop out of a need for survival or out of a need to increase the likelihood that their genes are going to be perpetuated. So they try to explain everything like that. Okay? Behavior genetics looks at how we differ from one another, our intelligence, how does that differ, how does sexual orientation differ, all those kinds of things, and is there a genetic explanation for that difference? Psychodynamic really grows out of Sigmund Freud's theories and how, with the understanding or belief that there is an unconscious level to our thinking that helps explain some of our behaviors, but we're not even aware of it unless maybe we really reflect on it and maybe go through some psychodynamic therapies and things like that. Behavioral, how we learn observable responses. Behaviorists, I talked about them earlier, where we learn from making associations, we learn from consequences of our behaviors, and we learn from rewards from our behavior. Then the last two, cognitive psychologists, or the cognitive perspective, really looks at how we get information in the brain, how we store it, how we get it back out. And then finally, the social cultural perspective, looking at how behavior is different across different cultures, and how attitudes change, how thinking, how behavior, changes. Also, what are the universals? What a smile is a smile in the United States is a smile in Canada, is a smile in Saudi Arabia, is a smile in China. Okay, so that would be a universal. It means the same thing everywhere you go, and everybody does that behavior. So, in terms of research, you can go into these areas for research too. So you could be a biological psychologist, developmental psychologist, cognitive, personality, social, and look at you can analyze behaviors in these areas from those three levels: biology, psychology, and social culture. And you can, like if we go back to the perspectives, we can look at, bring the perspectives in here as well when you study these areas. So the research, most of the research you see here is done in developmental psychology, but this used to be a lot bigger. Developmental psychologists study the lifespan, how we change from birth to death, and kind of what are the universal stages that people go through across, looking at intellectual development, looking at emotional development, physical development, social development, across the lifespan. So that's where a lot of research took place. But the biology, this piece of the pie is getting bigger because we're looking at the biology of the brain in particular. Social psychology, huge area, very interesting area, how we operate in the presence of others and in groups and even now globally. And then we have some other smaller areas of research as well. So what kind of, here's some, this is clearly not all psychologists, but these are the major job areas, I guess, the applied fields. Clinical psychologists treat people with psychological disorders. Counseling is more coping strategies with everyday problems that we all face, but not as serious as the psychological disorders. A lot of educational psychologists because we do a lot of IQ testing, personality testing, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of psychologists placed in educational institutions, and then industrial organizational psychologists are hired by companies that want to improve their productivity. They want to improve the attitudes of their workers. They want to, basically, what can we do to make more money? But in the context of making more money, they want to do that. They might look at management strategies. They really study maybe what influences motivation. And at some point, money doesn't mean as much as you would think in those situations. They also look at, industrial organizational psychologists also might look at man's interaction with machine and studying how humans operate inside cockpits or cars or with computers and that kind of thing. So here, most of the jobs are in clinical, some in counseling would be the next biggest area. And one question that often comes up is this difference between clinical psychologist and psychiatrist, and what the big difference is here is that clinical psychologists use psychotherapy, lots of different talk therapy strategies, cognitive therapies, behavioral therapies, other strategies, where psychiatrists pretty much are just prescribing drugs, and which may or may not be the most effective approach to depression, or for example. So that's a major difference that an AP Psych student should understand. All right, so that is a brief history. So we'll examine some of this in class tomorrow.